Should we just do a quick round of introductions then, just while we wait for Stein to sort his technical challenge, which, as Stefan said earlier on, is probably the most common comment on one of these sessions. You are on mute that we've seen this year.
Rich, will you take a co-host function? As it perfectly suits you, as a GSMA, right?
Oh, okay. Put a bit of pressure on. Yes, okay. I'll try and do that. So, thanks everybody for joining. I think this session is very much for us to talk about the role that operators can play around identity and providing the identity services that are in the market. We have a fantastic panel here today, made up of some true leaders in this field, or in certainly the telco space. I'll probably just go around the table and just ask everybody to introduce themselves, and then we can just dive into the sessions. So, Glyn, perhaps start with you in Telefonica. Oh dear, I think Glyn's on mute as well.
Okay. Oh, should be off mute now. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Rich. And hopefully Stein can join us very shortly to host the session. But yeah, so Glyn Povah, so I work at Telefonica Tech. I've been working in this space from a telco side for about 5 or 6 years, and in a way ever since the beginning, I guess, for attributes. And we'll talk a little bit more about the kind of manifestation of those products and services in a moment. But I'm happy to give a little bit more insight into what we're doing in Telefonica a little bit later in the session.
Okay, thanks, Glyn. Maybe over to Fraser to give us the introduction.
Thanks, Rich. So Fraser King, I head up commercial strategy and business development for Vodafone's Identity Hub. So that is a capability that sits inside of Vodafone Group Enterprise, delivering API-based identity services across industry. So obviously work with Glyn and Allister as well, Richard, for many years. So looking forward to sharing the work that we're doing today.
Fantastic. Yeah, nice introduction. Allister, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, again, Allister. I'm working for BT in their digital identity area. I've been there for 3 years. I've had the pleasure of working alongside Fraser at Vodafone and Glyn at O2, and our counterparts in 3 as well.
Thanks very much. And I think very UK focused so far. So I think it's Greg from is it ZenKey over in the US. I know that you guys are making great steps forward in that space. Sorry, Greg.
Yeah, hi, Greg Hill. Actually, currently with AT&T, but focused 100% on our digital identity joint venture with Verizon and T-Mobile. I previously had responsibility for the emerging solutions portfolio within AT&T, which included all of our fraud prevention, API-based business, as well as all of our verification authentication businesses, which are now transitioning to ZenKey, the joint venture.
That's fantastic, and it's great progress in the US. And of course, Stefan, I guess over to you, the man who makes some of the magic happen with the technology.
Thanks, Rich. Obviously, I'm not an Asian, but I'm here also to represent, what's been going on in Asia in the last couple of years. I'm Stefan. I'm the CEO of IPification, a company that is working hard with telecom operators around the globe to build what we like to call, the backbone of next generation mobile authentication technologies based on the IP address. In a nutshell, in terms of background, I'm half, mobile messaging, carrier billing, etc., where IPification and mobile authentication is playing a great part of it. So great to be part of this panel.
Fantastic. It'll be great to get that insight from Asia as well. So, Stein, can you hear us? And can we hear you?
Well, I can hear you. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
We can indeed. So I hand back to you as a master of the ceremony.
Yeah, well, what I had to unplug my external speaker, but anyway, that's how it works. Doesn't always work, this technology. Yes, I'm Stein Hansen. I'm the CEO of OpenSky Consulting, and previously I've been working 30-something years for Telenor, so I have a history as in the mobile operator space. So I'll make it short and stop there, I think. and I'll try to run everything from my computer. I hope the pictures at least show. And you saved me just now, Rich, from introducing everyone. So I'll just move on and do a little bit of introduction, and then we will just go ahead with every speaker one after the other, and we'll have a Q&A and a panel discussion at the end. So let's go. Right, can you see something? Yeah, probably. One of the things I have seen recurring is really what is digital identity. And, there have been several sessions today that probably have elaborated quite a lot on this. But I stole this slide from my previous employer. There are really two dimensions. One is how verified is your identity, and the other one is around how strong is the security. And I think if you listen to and watched the webinar earlier on this morning, Andrew Budd, the chairman of MEF, he gave a good overview of different solutions, I think, so I'm not going to repeat that. So what I will do is that I will talk about this from a consumer point of view, which is really based on my personal situation. And just to put a consumer perspective on this is that, I'm a Norwegian citizen. I have a personal identity number, and that was issued to me when I was born, and it's used in my passport and in my driver's license and for all my bank accounts. So that's really my digital ID, and it's a verified ID. I also have a mobile number. I've had it for 25 years or something like that. And by the way, I don't have a fixed line number any longer. I have no use for it anymore because it connects with my house. And I have a number of identifiers, like email addresses. I have 5 or 6 of them. I have a lot of usernames, that can be used in various ways. And, I have a lot of accounts. I have accounts with my mobile service provider, my cable TV provider, my security company, my insurance company, and you name it. And of course, like everyone else, I have a Facebook account and a Google account and Spotify and Netflix and lots of stuff. So what does this mean? It means that the government and the banks, they know me. They know that I am me. And in Norway, we have this bank ID, as you see on the screen, which actually I can use to access my bank accounts, and I can pay money with it, and I can even sign my tax declaration with it. So it's a very secure and it's a totally verified identity. To kind of access this, you can you can do this in various ways. You can do a manual multi-factor authentication in several ways, or you can do it on a mobile phone in a much simpler way with a PIN only, and then you have, of course, header enrichment and HTTPS. That is the basis for that the banks use. If you look at Facebook, they don't know that I am me. I could be Batman, but they know a lot about me. They know that they know where I am. Sometimes they know what I like. They know a lot of stuff about me, and these are the attributes that they kind of collect. So, but the fact is also that the mobile operators, they know a lot about me. They know where I am as well. They know where I've been. They know where I live. They know that I am trustworthy, that I pay my bills, and they know who I've been in contact with and when. So they also know a lot about me. So a digital identity can be anything in this space. And there are the two important aspects. It's the level of security, and it's the degree of verified identity. And these are, of course, relevant for different use cases. And I think if if you listen to Andrew Budd this morning, he also talked about the trade-off that you have to make between security and usability, and what is good enough, and everything does not have to be perfect. So we will see some examples today from the speakers, and the use cases that they are aiming for. So without further ado, I think I'll introduce Allister Fraser from EE, and then the other ones will follow directly. So, Allister, please.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Just got a couple of slides. The UK operators are in a really unique position where collectively we've got critical mass. I mean, pretty much everybody has a mobile phone, which is great from an inclusivity perspective, which is something we keep touching upon like throughout the day today. And people do everything on their mobile phones, right? They engage with their friends, their relatives, their bank, their gyms, just everybody. And people always have their mobile phones on them. And most people are constantly on their phones too. And all the while that they're constantly on their phones, they're also connected to the network. And running the network, obviously, the mobile operators get lots of information about our customers, which we need in order to provide our services to them. So earlier, Andrew Budd mentioned trust. Sylvie mentioned trust. Victoria mentioned trust. Surash mentioned trust. Stuart mentioned trust. They all mentioned trust, saying that the mobile phone numbers are trusted, right? We're a trusted source of first-party data. And of course we are. I mean, we're highly regulated. We're regulated by Ofcom. We're regulated by the FCA. And in that position, I'd argue that EE, Vodafone, O2, 3 don't just have the right to play in the digital identity space, but we've also got the responsibility to play in this space and help protect our customers. So Andrew Budd earlier, if you heard his presentation, he said that he was talking about mobile operator based authentication, and it was spoken in quite a bit of detail in the session called Effortless Mobile Centric ID Proofing and Authentication as well. We can provide information to help, one, protect our customers from fraud by verifying the information on their device and their SIM card. And again, Paul from TrueID spoke quite a bit about this. And two, we can authenticate the user, like confirming their identity when they set up a new online account somewhere. And three, we also touched upon this quite a bit. We can help improve the customer journey, right? Just by confirming their identity in the background and removing friction. So, and these kind of checks are valuable across all kinds of industries, right? Financial industries, e-commerce, gaming, gambling. Pretty much any company that needs to adhere to regulation should know what our existing APIs can offer, and also work with us on developing new APIs to, that they think could help them address new challenges. So if we go to the next slide, Stein. The UK, you'll see here all the logos, right? So the UK mobile network operators are all working closely together, and this is really crucial, right, on offering digital identity. And we're doing this via APIs just to make it easy for our customers to consume. And we know that all the operators have to be working together closely in order for this to be useful to anybody. So some of the APIs that you can see listed here are like KYC, Know Your Customer API, SIM Swap, Number Verify, Call Divert. And yeah, KYC, that binds a mobile phone number to personal details. So we get past the mobile phone number, we get past a name, an address, a date of birth, and we compare it to our verified records. And this is useful for those companies that are onboarding customers. And SIM Swap, again, SIM Swap has been spoken about in a few of the sessions today. But SIM Swap is where, and all of us are receiving one-time passwords via SMS all the time, right? And the SIM Swap API enables our customers to check when a SIM was last swapped before they send a one-time password via SMS. So if they can see that a SIM was swapped a month ago, no problem, just fire off the SMS. But if they see that the SMS, that the SIM card was swapped 20 minutes ago, then they probably, it's a bit of a red flag. They'll probably want to step up their authentication. In a couple sessions ago, SMS is absolutely brilliant. It's not going to go anywhere quickly, but we can use SIM swap APIs just to make the journey a little bit more secure. And call divert. The call divert API is just, look, before you do an outbound phone call, just check to make sure that number is not being diverted to another number, because it could have been being diverted by a fraudster. So, and number verify was described by Lee Zucker of Cinch very well a little earlier. But number verify basically just enables you to prove someone's in possession of the mobile phone without having to send them a one-time password via SMS, right? Which could be susceptible to social engineering, and the user possibly could enter in the wrong PIN code, with a fat thumb, So it just checks the mobile phone number in the web or the app session in the background, right? Using the network instead of using an SMS. So it should be a more secure, and it should be a better experience. And there's plenty of other APIs I can talk about, but for now, I'll pass you over to my colleague, Fraser.
Cool. So thanks, Allister. So let me talk about, so I think, Allister's done a really good job introducing this program that we've been working on, right? And I think the program started under the GSMA as Mobile Connect, and it's a really good example of how mobile operators are coming together to enable, access to data, better identification products, via a portfolio of APIs, right? And as Allister touched on, some of these services that we're launching, these are new services that are helping customers identify themselves, be protected against fraud. Other services are actually enhancing the security and the robustness of the likes of one-time password. Now you've heard, and all these things are the same, right? When you just know, if you sit down with anyone in this industry, you've heard a lot of it today, no doubt. But when you sit down with with CEOs of big companies, particularly banking, financial services, and you say, what is the number one problem that you face as a business? It's always the same, right? How do I protect customers against fraud without ruining the customer experience? And mobile operators for a number of years, right? We recognize that we hold some phenomenal data, right? We have vast amounts of data. It's highly dynamic, right? And fraud happens in real time. So who you are in the mobile network at any one time is very much kind of who you are in the real world at that time. So it's a really good source of data to be able to identify people, spot account compromise, and then obviously leverage some of the authentication capabilities that we'll talk about soon. Sometimes mobile operators, I think, jokingly say, they know more about their customers than their customers, know about themselves. And that data is really creating this kind of tremendous opportunity for some of these, these new services. So this is kind of Vodafone's view of the world. So inside of Vodafone, like many operators, we operate across the world, right? We're present in over 60 countries. We've got a very strong European footprint. So when this program was conceived, it was conceived in the UK first. So these services that we're talking about today have been, live in the UK for a number of years. The UK was the market where a lot of the stuff started. Because it's a market with a very big kind of e-commerce industry. It's got a large population, high GDP, but fundamentally what it actually had that made it successful is it had the support of all four major operators inside of that market. And what we all agreed to do is we agreed to get together to build the same services based on the same standards, the same principles, and there was a really good engagement within kind of major banking and financial services. It was very much problem-led. Banks said, these are the problems. Operators said, what data do we open up to, to provide, some level of protection against, these types of fraud, as well as creating, better experiences for the customers. So inside of Vodafone, what we have done is we have taken what we did in the UK, and we've now deployed that as a group-wide capability. So the Vodafone Identity Hub is a single technology platform. It lives inside of AWS. That platform is connected into each of our operating companies. Vodafone UK, Vodafone Germany, Vodafone Spain, Vodafone Greece, they're all live. Netherlands is about to be launched. And then we have a common set of services, account takeover protection, match, number verified, some of the the topics Allister would have talked about. We'll go into a bit more detail shortly. But these are common across the Vodafone group. So if you're a bank or a financial services company or a system integrator, when you connect to the Vodafone Identity Hub, you get access to the same data across the Vodafone footprint, same terms and conditions, same kind of commercial construct, right? So really making it easy, for international brands to be able to connect and consume, these services. So you can see the markets that we've got live today. As I mentioned, the program is very focused around problems. So we don't launch a service just for the heck of it. We launch services that have a very clear kind of problem statement and sort of commercial underpinning, that drive justification of it. And again, you can see a bit of a look. As we go into the kind of second half of this year, we will be deploying these services even wider across our footprint. There is no reason why these services should not be available across, the whole of Europe, if not all mobile operators. The more mobile operators that join this program, the more countries that enable these services, the larger the opportunity becomes for everybody. Obviously, in the very early days, we focused with, the major kind of banking customers in the UK. So, the major banks, they didn't care if there were services in Germany or Spain or North America, right? All they cared about was, can I have the majority of the British population covered? As we're now starting to deal with international customers, they are looking for services that are available across their entire user base, right? Be it the European region, be it North America, LATAM, South America, and even Africa as well, right? So it is absolutely fundamental to really make these services viable, that the same services are available, across industry. And then we're looking at some additional APIs. We're looking at a home network API, the ability to determine whether or not a customer is roaming. So looking at some use cases around sort of international cross-border fraud, and then also age verification. So certainly what we've seen, particularly over the last year, pandemic, massive amounts of commerce now happening online. What I find kind of intriguing is you can walk into a supermarket, try and buy a bottle of whiskey. You'll be asked for identity. However, I can Waitrose.com. I can order a bottle of whiskey, and I'm never kind of identified, right? So this ability to create better ways of helping customers verify, the age of a customer in the digital domain, again, really strong data that mobile operators have. So this is the Vodafone kind of footprint today. Next slide. Yeah, I mean, so I just want to be a little contentious, and I think there'll be others in the group who really kind of labour this point. And I think, there we go. Good. So look, authentication mobile is a massive opportunity for mobile operators, right? We've seen acceleration not just in digital commerce over the last 12, 18 months. We've also seen a massive increase in the amount of fraud. I think in the UK, the cost of fraud is something like £3,000 a minute, right? About 1.7 billion a year. Most of the banks in the UK are reporting their highest fraud numbers that they have ever seen, right? So as commerce grows and new subscribers go into the online, fraud grows, at a very majority of commerce now happening on mobile. It doesn't matter which country in the world, but 70% of commerce now happening on mobile. And what I would argue, and what I hope we can talk a little bit more about today, is existing authentication solutions are not fit for mobile. Sending dynamic links via emails with poor user experience, authentication using apps. Yes, the ability to be there, but there is a number of well-known compromises. Biometrics is little, particularly to do with enrollment, and privacy. Authenticators are an absolutely horrible, user experience, right? I know a lot of people agree of them, but customers absolutely hate them. And SMS in some ways love to hate. SMS OTP gets such a hard time as an authentication mechanism, but it is the world's most successful second factor of authentication, right? And it is far better than having no authentication at all. But ultimately, if we were to actually sit down with a blank paper and try and identify, an authentication or verification solution, what we have today would ultimately not be the answer. Next slide. And really, I think this is, this is a fundamental question, I think, for us as mobile operators, right? We have a great business around one-time passwords. In fact, it is, like I say, the world's most successful 2FA. Next slide, please. However, the question is that a space that, that we want to kind of be, kind of isolated in, right? In the online identity ecosystem, we very much play in this 2FA space. So the question for us at Vodafone is, how do we create additional protection and additional controls around one-time password, while also creating the next generation of services that leverages all of the inherent capabilities, but adds additional security and also removes friction? And if you go to my last slide, you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, and you would have heard, unfortunately that's the session, but you would have heard the guys at essentially Suka talking about number verify. Number verify is an absolute paradigm shift in passwordless authentication. Now, we as Vodafone have actually switched on number verify across our entire European footprint, right? So 11 Vodafone markets are technically live for number verify today. That's 104 million mobile customers who are now covered by that service. And obviously, the likes of Telefonica and EE and, other operators are enabling this service as well. What number verify does, it takes that flow that you saw on the previous screen, which is lots and lots of clicks, moving in and out of screens, receiving passwords, deleting them later, into a completely, seamless login and authentication experience. And I don't know if anyone's, for all you people out there using Vodafone as your mobile operator, what you will know is when you actually install the Vodafone mobile app, you never need to actually install a password, right? So you download the app, you open the app, it uses number verify to verify that you, uses the authentication system to kind of log you in, right? So we've got rid of now exists across, our entire European footprint, right? 104 million users. So I think the question really for the mobile industry that I put out is, are other mobile operators keen to kind of join us on that journey? And with that, I'll pass over to my colleague Glyn.
Thanks, Fraser. So I won't dwell on some of the stuff that Allister and Fraser have talked about. I think they've covered some of the core services we've made commercially live in the UK. But I wanted to give just a couple of insights on what we see as our strategy for success in Telefonica, or Telefonica Tech as we now are, with our new brand. Talk a little bit about Latin America and Brazil in particular, where we're doing some more advanced things than perhaps we're doing in Europe, and perhaps where we see our future going. And also very quickly on the business outcomes, just to share a little bit about how we're making commercial progress. So next slide, please. But I think, this is actually a Movistar España SIM, but it's the first one I could lay my hands on. But, it all comes back to the SIM card. I think it's been mentioned a few times today. I think Paul Maguire mentioned it from True on one of the panel sessions. But, we have a unique asset in telcos, which is a cryptographically secure element, which is in every mobile phone and sometimes in multiple mobile phones nowadays with, dual SIMs and eSIMs and the rest. And we obviously authenticate this card in every customer's phone, many hundreds of times a day, and that's the way the mobile network works. And we've kind of been, I guess we've been quite greedy and kept that capability to ourselves, and we've really only allowed it within our own networks and partner networks when customers are roaming to authenticate calls and texts and data sessions. But now we've opened that capability up with number verify, and Fraser talked about that. It's a great service. It's a great evolution, I think, of SMS, and I think it's a great new product from mobile operators that we're going to see rolled out quite rapidly, quite widely across the globe. Already proven in China, already proven in the US, and soon to be proven, I think, in UK and other markets. So I would say, we're very much anchored to where we came from, around SMS. And we never forget that, of course, SMS continues to be very relevant in the 2FA or MFA digital identity space. But we want to evolve that quickly and, offer products beyond possession and new additional authenticators and capabilities from the telcos. I think I'm not going to talk too much about our product development criteria, but what I would say on that is, one of the things I always look for, when we're creating new product concepts or creating new products is, what is the uniqueness we bring to the market as an operator? Because there's a huge amount of competition, and and the ecosystem is growing very fast. But we always look at it from a perspective of what can we bring uniquely as telcos, and of course one of the things we can bring is ubiquity, and that's carrying on the theme of inclusivity to some extent, where pretty much most customers in most countries now do possess a SIM card and usually a smartphone, sometimes feature phones in other markets, and we want to play to those strengths where we have network assets and data that we can surface to leverage those and develop the market. Next slide, please. And just to highlight that point a little more, this comes from OWI, who put this out, and for those that don't know, One World Identity are kind of global leading experts on the overall identity space, the whole ecosystem, which is a very large ecosystem, thinking about all the different categories within that. But they came out and said earlier this year that mobile identity and device intelligence, they see it as a highly influential part of the identity and fraud ecosystem that has high potential to become a platform business. So I think that's important to understand. We have the potential. We're at the start of our journey now, and we as operators, as the ones on the call today, but also on a more global basis, we have that ambition to actually develop our products towards a platform business where we know we can offer global scale to global customers. Next slide, please. I'm missing a slide. But what I would say on thinking about future stuff, and I know that Stein asked me to give a little insight into what's going on outside Europe and particularly outside the UK, is we have deployed in a number of proof of concepts a kind of next generation authentication, I say factor or attribute if you like, which is very much based around mobility analytics. So I guess it's kind of an anti-fraud product in some ways, and it's an API product which creates a score, so you can query it based upon the mobile number, just as you can the SIM swap service or the number verify service in the UK, and we'll return a score for that mobile number. I think it's actually from 0 to 20, but it could be any score, and that gives a level of confidence around obviously customer is who they say they are, but also it has a certain mobility aspect as well, thinking about the use cases. So that we've got 2 use cases that have been tested in Brazil with that proof of concept product. One is around the retail space. So when customers go on to the local online retailers and want a high value product delivered, the retailers are able to query our kind of mobility anti-fraud service and determine with a level of confidence based upon the score they receive back, is the address that's bound to that mobile number where the customer wants the item delivered. Is there a high level of confidence that's the likely address of where the customer has been seen over previous months? I think that's a really strong and relevant use case that we could potentially bring to Europe in the future, and no doubt we will find a way to make that work in terms of GDPR and the other lawful processing basis of the data. Bearing in mind, of course, that all of these services deliver great benefits to our consumer customers, and as telcos, we are massive consumer brands in our own right, offering retail services to our customers. And we've also trialed that product as an authentication kind of factor or something about you behavioral attribute, if you like, alongside possession factors like SMS and number verify to the retail banks in Brazil. And it's been quite successful in terms of reducing fraud, I think, to levels around 90% from what they saw previously in the proofs of concepts we run. So I think probably that gives a little insight into where we've come from, where we are today, and also where we might be going in the future. And I think if you think about what was talked about earlier in terms of the future world of decentralized and self-sovereign, maybe the operators can play in the space of issuing these things as verifiable credentials into customer wallets, and they can use those credentials wherever they want to use services. But that is a little way out, but just to give a sense of what we're thinking at the moment. So I guess with that, I would say just to sum up, it's all about the SIM cards, a cryptographically secure element we have in our network. We're very much leveraging that and offering very much first-party deterministic data insight services to our global B2B customers. And with that, I'll hand over to Greg ZenKey.
Sure, thanks. Just have a few slides here, and I'll try to keep it to 5 minutes. I know we're running behind. So a lot of very similar themes to what everyone has said with regard to the trust factor, as well as the unique capabilities and insights that the MNOs have, whether it be our ability to authenticate the SIM card or the insights we have into device changes or account changes with our subscribers, which naturally are more pristine than a social media profile or other types of attributes that might be used to create someone's digital identity and to keep it updated. So we completely agree that the mobile network operators need to collaborate. And in fact, we've taken that one step farther in the United States by actually creating a standalone LLC consisting of AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon. We began with AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and Sprint. After the T-Mobile acquisition of Sprint, we now have the three main mobile network operators in the United States that are members of the LLC. We represent 300 plus million mobile subscribers in the United States. And the joint venture has actually launched. So this is a commercially available business. We launched last October in the United States, which is where we're currently limited. But we do hope to collaborate with international MNOs to expand the ZenKey solution. So again, similar themes around the unique role of the MNOs and how we're positioned to help combat fraud, given the wireless network technology, and also our ability to alert and detect events that are very valuable within the fraud detection, prevention, decisioning systems within an SP's environment. So a lot of API-based services, which we'll get into in a second, which we've heard a lot about today. And so what is ZenKey? ZenKey is really two things. It's a mobile application supported by what we refer to as trust services, which are not only pull APIs, but also push alerts, which I'll get into. But we really support three use cases with the application, which is a carrier-signed application. So a non-carrier signed application would not be able to access these endpoints or, of course, authenticate the SIM on our networks, hence the reason for using the application. And as part of that, the three members of ZenKey, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, have begun integrating ZenKey into carrier applications and websites. So if you go to NFL Sunday Ticket, for example, you can log in with your ZenKey. If you go to myatt.com, you can log in with your ZenKey. HBO Max, other Warner properties, Verizon Fios. And so the application is being used by the carriers ourselves for our own mobile subscribers, and it is cross-carrier. So this is a single connection. So if you have a T-Mobile ZenKey, you're able to log into an AT&T or Verizon property using your ZenKey. So really the three use cases we support are sign up and registration. So this is the balance of the friction with the customer experience. If you're an SP that is part of our ecosystem, but you've not yet linked your ZenKey to that SP, the registration process is made very easy with the existing attributes in your ZenKey, which you've already registered, which you can then link to an SP to create either a single sign-on experience or a second factor. Logging in, so our authentication use case leverages the network authentication to either provide a first factor or second factor authentication, depending on the vertical. Typically, we tend to operate in the more high trust space, so really ZenKey there plays better in the second factor authentication, where it is a replacement for SMS OTP. and prevents the opportunity for SIM swap due to the fact that the ZenKey application will detect a new SIM in the device. And if that is so, then a recovery flow is initiated, which the ZenKey user has to complete using a ZenKey recovery code or biometric before the ZenKey can be activated. So a SIM swap would not allow you to take someone's ZenKey and then use it to authenticate into whichever SPs have been linked in their ecosystem. And then we have a confirmation capability, which simply confirms a transaction with a participating SP in the ZenKey ecosystem that a user has actually requested that. And again, this is done via the app and via push with a one tap that confirms that transaction. Beneath these are trust services APIs across a number of different attributes. Obviously, SIM tenure and SIM swap we've talked a lot about, but these are push and pull. So we have the ability to subscribe mobile numbers into an alerting system that if the SIM has been swapped, we can proactively alert an SP of that. They can then note that within their environment and choose to take an action if they then see a transaction perhaps that is out of the normal life cycle event for that customer. Line port, device lost stolen, profile name change, email. So this gets us into the more life cycle events. So we're talking about offers beyond the device possession. We're also working on identity proofing, which would enable us to offer higher AAL levels for more high assurance use cases. So if you go to the last slide. So just an example of what ZenKey is here, and there's a couple of sort of underlying principles that are very important to us, which is the privacy and control and the ability for the end user to really be in charge of how their attributes are being shared and be able to explicitly consent to that using the mobile application, as well as be able to see who they have in their ecosystem and be able to decide whether they want to keep them in that ecosystem. And they may decide to share certain attributes for a low consideration relationship and many more attributes for perhaps being able to use ZenKey with their bank. And so ZenKey also works across secondary devices where you can link your secondary device via QR code with your ZenKey on your mobile device. And so it does support non-mobile phone devices, which is very important, using the same network authentication. And then, as many have already described, being able to have insight into the activity that someone is engaging in, providing richer information for us to be able to enhance not only their experience but our ability to detect and prevent fraud. And so as I mentioned, ZenKey launched last October. We have multiple live commercial customers of the product. The product is evolving this year, and the carriers are integrating with more and more of their apps and websites. So we expect to see our growth continue in 2021 and 2022. That is the strategy that the U.S. MNOs are approaching to really assert our position in the digital identity space. I believe it was mentioned earlier that it is in our position is that it's due to the unique nature of our business and the information that we do have and the relationship that we have with our subscribers. Really, there's a need for the MNOs to be involved in this area. Of course, it is a commercial operation, but the carriers also think that there is obviously vast societal benefits to engaging in this endeavor and our ability to ideally uniquely combat fraud on a very large scale and help literally hundreds of millions of mobile subscribers in the United States. And so that is ZenKey.
I guess I can jump in. So anyway, thanks a lot, Greg. So I'm conscious of the time, so I'll try to be brief. I mean, by listening, being objective and listening to actually all three UK carriers and also listening what's going on in the US, we can see that actually, going back to our main topic, where the operators fit, in the overall digital identity ecosystem is I think very much around the authentication and the fraud prevention. As we can, although we've discussed about digital identity as a bigger framework, what we can see that some of the main use cases that we are seeing happening across the industry, especially with the phone-centric identity and telecoms in the space, is around the authentication. And this is actually what we are seeing as IPification, in terms of seeing operators perfectly positioned to provide this missing piece. When we are calling missing piece, we are talking about this possession factor, which is becoming crucial in when we are talking about the strong customer authentication, when we are talking about the PSD2 and etc., where the possession factor we've heard from a couple of other panelists today is actually a factor which is kind of non-negotiable. So possession factor is a must, and then there's a discussion, and kind of analysis on the enterprise side whether they want to leverage on a knowledge factor, which is arguably already compromised, or leveraging on the biometric, which has its challenges as well, as Fraser discussed. So we as a kind of telecom enablers on the authentication side, we would very much like to see the evolution from SMS, one-time pins going even 2 steps forwards. What we are seeing in some of the major Western markets, that there is evolution happening, from SMS OTPs to arguably better technology, called header enrichment, which Stein mentioned. But we want to see it, basically skipping from SMS and header enrichment to something even better, which is based on the public IP addresses and something that the telecoms definitely have a great capability to do so. So going back to Asia Pacific, right? Like as we would like to kind of cover what's going on in different regions. I would like to emphasize, Asia is probably kind of specific in terms of their digital economy development. I guess similar to Africa, with the exception of course a few very developed markets, such as Singapore, Korea, Japan, etc. Most of the Asia Pacific region kind of leapfrogged into a digital economy, and now most of the guys are actually living fully on mobile. So they didn't have a chance to go through laptops to open the email accounts and etc. Actually, the mobile device for most of the people in some of the high population markets, this is the only device they see throughout the day, and in some cases throughout the whole life. So it comes as a no surprise that the phone-centric identity has been there for years. I mean, I put example of some of our clients and some of the apps that actually have the sign in and logging with phone number as their main option, right? Like while we see on the Western side that in most of the cases it's kind of email and password combination, while the phone number is just as an added attribute or 2FA and MFA. Second, also important point for telecoms in Asia is that due to still the regulations catching up, etc., there's a vast majority of the subscribers who are prepaid and who left basically zero KYC data to telecom operators when they're buying SIM cards. So when talking to these telecoms and their approach to mobile identities, they have no other option but basically focus purely on their authentication capabilities, because there's no KYC data in their database, so they cannot participate in address proving or name, surname pre-fill forms and so on and so forth. So what we are seeing is actually their great focus on the mobile authentication piece and looking very much at monetizing this part. So I'm happy to say that IPification and through our patented GMID box platform, we managed to enable over 30 telecom operators, not only in Asia but across other part of the globe, to cover some of the most important use cases which we've heard from I believe from the rest of the panelists today and the rest of the whole experts on this event. So Stein, if you can go to the next slide. I can revoice what we've been discussing, but in our experience and in our strong belief, we see telecom operators in most of the countries, right? Like not only talking about Asia, is that they can play a major part on the user onboarding. No matter we are talking about the phone number verification, login or registration mechanisms. They can play a very important role on adding, a seamless 2FA or MFA solutions via IP addresses and their internal capabilities, and being able to verify, kind of 3 possession factors, what we like to call the network triplet. The SIM card, device, and phone number, basically in a single API call. And as Glyn mentioned. Basically 2 main kind of fraud prevention use cases that we are seeing, on a big rise all around the globe, and probably UK has been a great example in Europe on that one. And at the end, before I pass it on to Rich, maybe just I'd like to show one real time example of how the user experience looks like. When we are talking about the seamless authentication, which is not, an SMS OTP or header enrichment, and what we've seen, bringing a great results, for one of the biggest fintech and ride-hailing food delivery companies in Southeastern Europe, which we've been, using as a case study, for many operators in the region. So. Thanks a lot for the attention on my end. So I'll pass it on to Richard and sharing the kind of GSMA view.
All right, thanks, Stefan. I'm really conscious of time, so we'll try and make this as quick as possible, just for everybody. I think, from my perspective, you've already heard a lot of stuff around how we see mobile operators moving into this space. I saw one of the questions that came in was, is it too late for the for other operators get into this space a bit too late or even too early? I think it's probably about the right time. We're definitely seeing a lot of traction in the marketplace. We're seeing more and more operators truly understand the value of the data that they've got. We're very much seeing the solutions which they're providing move into 2 key areas, B2B and enterprise identity supporting products, which we've heard a lot about today from what we've heard in the UK. So things like the network attributes and the KYC data, sorry about that, everybody. I had a little person come and join me during the slide. So sorry, what I was just saying was we're seeing the market move into 2 directions. One which is very around B2B services, the other one which is focused on operators playing a role in IDP services, so very much becoming the identity provider. We've heard a lot about the left-hand side of this slide. On the right-hand side, we've seen huge developments in the space of basic authentication, and operators playing a role with Turkcell with over 32 million subscribers. We've heard about ZenKey. Identification in a lot more detail with Belgium and ITSME, where we're seeing that we've got over 2 million subscribers using that service now. And then we've got operators who have built on top of becoming an ID provider, and then started to look at additional services. So we've seen SKT and the Korean operators moving into the space where they've been able to build on top of the IDP platform the capabilities to do things like credit checks, and they're now seeing that over 250,000 people are using that service per month, and they're charging $3 per month for it. And they've also introduced a stocks and shares authentication platform, which they're now providing, which again is being accessed by 25,000 subscribers a month at a cost of around $10. So I just really wanted to say that we're seeing the market move in many different ways. We're seeing that the operators are now getting that this is a real business opportunity for them, particularly through the leading lights of the US and the UK. And I'll probably leave it there. So hand back to you, Stein.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me this time. We started off late and we added to the delay as well, I think. So I'm not sure we can have a lot of questions, but maybe one or two. One thing I would maybe like to ask one of the UK operators, and I think I'll ask Allister. You have this cooperation across the UK operators, and but how do you do the go-to-market approach, and how do you actually compete as well? Because you are competitors after all. So can you just comment a little bit on that?
Well, I would say in this area, we're definitely not competitors. I think in this area, none of us can succeed and none of us can work in the digital identity space without the cooperation of the other operators. I mean, EE is about 32% of the market. And if I go to my prospects and offer them my APIs, as soon as they find out that I can only serve 32% of the market, they're not interested. We have to have Vodafone, O2, and 3 on board in order to have a digital identity solution that is, like I said at the very beginning, that offers the critical mass that they need. So yeah, it's really important that we all work together, and we're not working together in this area as competitors at all. And how we're going to the market as well is we tend not to approach the end customers. We're going through partners, and a number of the partners that we're going through today have spoken in some of the earlier sessions, and those partners will bring all the 4 APIs from the 4 major UK operators together, and they will offer it out to the end customers in one API, and making it really, really simple to consume.
Okay, I'm being told to wrap up, so that leaves a very short panel discussion. So I'd like to thank you all for speaking, and I'd like to thank everyone for listening and watching as well. So sorry about that, but it's the end of the day. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you very much, Stein.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.